Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. If you've just joined us, we're on a series where we're studying the book of James, and we are on week 2, where we're looking at James chapter 2. This series is 5 weeks looking at the 5 chapters of James. And so this week we're looking at how real faith refuses to show favoritism, and in fact, subtle favoritism in church is just as serious as any other sin. My favorite topic, favoritism. So, has there been a time someone made assumptions about you based on how you looked, dressed, or talked?
I think like one of the most common ones I have is that everyone just sees me as like someone big and intimidating, so they're usually scared.
Oh.
But then once they find out like I'm just a huge chatty extrovert, they're like, "Oh, wow, you're so much like softer and kinder than I thought." And I was like, "Thanks."
Thanks. Softer and kinder than I thought. Thanks.
Yeah, well, quite a few for me too. So I look really skinny, and people always say, "Why don't you eat?" But actually, I eat a lot, like 4 or 5 meals sometimes.
Oh, at one shot?
Oh, wow, one shot, or two McDonald's meals together.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and then the way I talk, you know, I usually think for a while before I give responses, and then some people would really panic during those silence.
Oh.
Or some people would they try to kill the silence, so they keep talking, and then they would joke at themselves saying, "Oh, I'm such a clown now. I'm talking so much and you talk like little," which I thought is true. You are really a clown. You're really a clown.
Really a clown.
I think it also doesn't help my matter because I also sometimes when I'm emotionalist, I have a RBF.
Yeah.
Or like not really RBF, but like I look angry. Like when I'm like just like.
Yeah, true. Like my face is generally also like if I'm not thinking, if I'm zoned out, I just look as though I'm very disinterested in people. So people thought like I was just really unapproachable, and which is a common theme that I've had. You know, like, oh, Pet's like a little bit unapproachable, like she's just too cold. But I was like, oh no, I just wasn't. I'm not there. I'm like, you know, zoned out. So that's the thing. One time, actually, this was quite funny. This was actually in YWAM. My friend, well, we're friends now. Then we're like just classmates, right? And then she was telling me, actually, I thought you were some like arrogant, pompous person. I was like, but why? And she said, oh, because, you know, she thought I was putting on my accent. Like the way I sound when I speak English. So she thought I was just putting it on. I was being like just this really like, you know, different person. And I was like, no, this is how I sound in real life. So I guess the more that she got to know me, she's like, oh, she's not putting it on. She's actually genuinely a real person, not arrogant and whatnot. I was like, yeah, I'm glad you didn't, you know, jump to conclusions about who I am based on the way I sound. Thanks. But yeah, she's definitely looked beyond that, but that was kind of like a funny thing.
Is this the time to cue Greatest Showman, This Is Me?
Okay, but how about times where you've done the same to others?
It happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
I always judge people, admittedly. So it's like I always think most of the extrovert people are stupid. Like your words come out of your mouth without going through the brain.
That's what they say about me all the
That's
time.
me. That's me.
And all right, and then I would look at people like tattoos or people wear very tight yoga pants, and I would think, why you wear like this?
Well. I can't say specific examples. I've definitely made assumptions about people before. I think like some people I'm like, oh, I think the assumption I would make is, oh, they don't want to talk to me. And then they're like, oh, they're alpha females, like I'm staying away. I guess like when it comes to alpha characters, I tend to not really gear towards them because I'm just like, it's just too much. But then I find out that these alpha females actually are quite friendly, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're also like, they thought that I was just this too cool for school person, like this lang mui, like, you know, like doesn't want to talk to us. I was like, I was scared of you guys. So yeah, again, both way assumptions were made. Now, let's talk a little bit about favoritism, shifting over to that. Have you seen favoritism play out in a church setting?
Well, if it is the like rich man sit here in a good seat and poor man you sit on the floor kind of setting, then I haven't really seen something like this. But I suspect those who can tithe a lot, or who can or have been contributing a lot to ministries or serving, they would receive a lot more attention than those people who cannot do these things.
Yeah. Yeah, so then it's like a conversation, like, is that good, or is that, is that seen as favoritism? I mean, like, it's true, right? Those who are able to tithe more probably will receive a little bit more attention, and you want to honor them. But then also, like, I think there is some context that people be like, oh, these people give so much money, let's put them on a pedestal, let's, do whatever they say, right?
I think for me is I kind of saw it more in the matter of like when there I saw favoritism in the way of like cutting some slack, but then because like of course like especially in the church, right, we're supposed to like give grace and give mercy, but I think to what extent, like where do you draw the line? Because like not in ICA, but I have witnessed like certain Christian groups like show extra favoritism for their own people. There was a time I was on missions, and this one group that was related to this organization was hosting us, and basically we're a team, and there were girls in our team, and then basically the son of the host was like just walking around on like topless, and then it made all the girls feel uncomfortable, right? And yeah, the host just like, oh, it's just my son. Show grace, show mercy, but like I think there has to be some level of accountability, and I think like not you're basically skimping on, like turning a blind eye to them, I feel like, without the right accountability.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between showing favoritism and showing honor too. Like, because people are like, oh, like we've got people coming in, esteemed guests, and we show them honor. Like, is that favoritism? But I don't think it is favoritism. I think favoritism is basically showing something to the detriment of someone else. So I can still show honor to like esteemed guests, but not treat my staff like crap, right? So there is definitely a difference between showing favoritism and showing honor. I think there's some cases, again, where people might just see it as like, oh, because you're a senior leader at the church or whatever, then I will do exactly as you say. I think I wouldn't say that's favoritism. I think it's just more of like again, different. It's just a culture of hierarchy. Again, Asian culture is very like top down. So because boss told, like, a senior person told me to do it, so I will do it. So I think that's just a general vibe. I think that can also be seen in all aspects of society. It's like church is not exempt. So I think that's just something to think about. Is like, there's a difference between favoritism. There's a difference between showing honor, and then there's also like something to bear in mind as well is culture. And I think like one of the things that I would say, favoritism like played out. So the next question actually, okay, I'll ask is, how does showing favoritism to the wealthy or to specific groups affect communities and relationships within the church? And I would say that one of the things that is topic is close to my heart is like, I think especially when I was doing youth, there's always that question like, oh, who's your favorite kid, right? Like to your parents. And then my dad would jokingly say, oh, you're my favorite daughter because I'm the only daughter. And then like to my son, my only favorite son, right? So I think just to say, okay, fine, dad. Like, I mean, obviously I wouldn't seriously ask him like, who's your favorite kid? But I think at the back of your mind, you always think like, who's the favorite, right? The brother or the daughter. And sometimes I would think that my brother is the favorite one because of all the attention that he gets, so on and so forth. But obviously that's the furthest thing from the truth. So when it comes to like, say when I was doing youth ministry, I was thinking like, oh, I want to be the youth pastor that doesn't show favoritism, because I know how that can be so sensitive. For kids to especially see like, oh, leaders prefer this group of kids, but then they don't prefer that group of kids. Because I think I kind of felt that growing up. I don't think it was intentional. I think it's just because I wasn't very invested, so the leaders didn't exactly pay attention to me. I was the outlier in the group. And then so for the kids, they're more invested. They're like, oh yeah, we'll pour into you. And so I've definitely seen kids hurt by the favoritism played out. So I didn't want to go down that path as much as I could. I wouldn't be surprised if I did show favoritism without intention, and people were hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but I, at least to the best of my ability, I tried not to. So anyways.
Yeah, how would you advise people when they experience like some kids are really active and some other kids are less active? How do we balance our attention?
I think you just need to, because I think you can only invest as much as the person gives back to you, right? So I think for some kids, like when I try to invest in them, and if they're like responsive in a good way, then we carry on. So I think that I try to keep a lookout for that. And also there, obviously I can't minister to every single person, right? So, but hey, can you speak to that person? So I kind of just divvy out the thing, because yeah, I mean, I can only be stretched over so many, right? So I think it's just more keeping it outlook and being able to send out like people to take care of the outliers, so to speak. But there's some people that truly, they don't want to be engaging at all, like as much as you try. You know, I mean, there's some people that are super shy and they kind of like engage and then you carry on, but there's some people that just, they don't want to. So then I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, you're here and you don't really want to engage, and then I can send people to talk to them, but they're like, nah. So I was like, okay, well then that'll be a
I would say it creates division. It causes unnecessary bitterness in other people. It's like what we have talked about previously about heavenly wisdom and proverbs. Like by showing favoritism to certain communities, we are promoting outward characteristics rather than heavenly wisdom. So while charisma deceives and beauty fades, like we still focus on these things, or we focus on how much like tithing can the church business can receive, rather than on the salvation and pastoral care for all people.
I feel like in the same way that I think, you know how the Bible says like we should be like blameless, so that like there's nothing that people can blame us on. I think in that same manner is that like when if they I said about accountability, if they like let the show favoritism for the wealthy, right, then there's like some certain bias. What other areas would they show bias to as well, right? I think it's like the same thing as like a judge and jury. Like if there's bias, can you really like trust them? If they're biased on this one thing, would they be biased about this other thing as well? So I think again, like all back in the circle, accountability. I think that when you start questioning one thing, it can lead to like so many other things that people can question.
All right, so we see the seriousness of showing favoritism, that it's not right. So why is showing favoritism just as serious as breaking the other commandments?
Because we're not honoring each person for the God-given value, rather than earthly value. Everyone is made in the image of God, and like we should focus on this aspect rather than the money or their personality.
Like the follow-up question would be then, like, how does favoritism reveal that our faith is still self-centered or performance-based?
Well, by practicing or enabling favoritism, I think that we are proclaiming my parameters are more important than God's. And so other people are not virtuous because of their faith or love, but we are seeing that they can provide lots of money or contribution to the ministries. So it also reminds me of in Galatians chapter 6, like Paul wrote, for even those who are circumcised do not themselves keep the law, but they desire to have you circumcised, that they may boast in your flesh. But far from it be me to boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. So like we are focusing on all these vain things or external things, and then like we forgot about the internal, and it always build ourselves up rather than to build God up.
I think in a very similar manner, I was gonna say that like when you start being performance based, you kind of look to someone else or something else to be your provider, and you seek their merits. Actually, it was really interesting the timing of like when I was like reflecting on this question. I was listening to like worship music, and it happened. I forgot by who. The Blood. I forgot who it was by.
Bethel.
Probably.
It's Bethel.
And I was in that part of the song, and I wrote it down, right. So this is what was going on. Like I was thinking about this question. The worship song just played at the time. So the lyrics are, it's never been about performance, perfection, or striving for acceptance. It's never been about deserving or earning. It's a gift that's freely given. And that last part stood out to me. Like, it's a gift that's really given. Jesus died for us. If we change that as the source of our provider, you're basically making like what Jesus died for redundant. And I was like, oh, that's a huge insult. That's disrespectful. So yeah, that was just what came to mind.
Yeah. Like, the commandment is love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind, right? And the second is greatest is this, which is love your neighbor as yourself. So if you truly love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, whatever, you would then see people as God sees them. And also, if you love your neighbor as yourself, then you will love people as yourself. But if you show favoritism, you're not necessarily loving everyone as yourself, because then it's only like, oh, I'll like you, I don't like you. I like you, I don't like you, right? And I think with favoritism, it is more self-centered, because you're showing favor to people that will bring you benefits. That is, I guess, something that you want in your circle, or that you know is a added bonus value, right? And then people that are not going to be added value to you, it's like, nah, I'm good. So it's definitely very, very performance-based, very self-centered. It's not the big picture situation.
Talking about songs is really, really hard to not like the one who sing well.
Oh, yeah.
And not dislike the ones who sing badly.
Yeah. Oh, man.
no.
I've definitely, like, you know, there's some people like, oh, yeah, you definitely should be a singer-songwriter. And there's some people I'm like, I don't know if that should be your dream. But
Hey,
anyways.
have you heard of auto-tune?
But anyways, but yeah, like, yeah. So that's a side note. But anyways, so I think something to bear in mind is don't just believe in the words of God, but put into action. And I think when you show favoritism, you're not putting the words of God into action. Okay, so along the lines of favoritism, obviously this is, like, we talk about favoritism being like, you know, self-centered and I mean, if we show favoritism, it really shows our faith is still self-centered and performance-based. Like, we also have to take a look at our own selves as well, like how we are. So what's one bias you've noticed in yourself that God might be calling you to confront?
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
I know this is
Confession time, guys. I think for me is oh dear. It's the Christians who, I think it's more of a pet peeve. It's the Christians who, like, I know you should know better kind of thing.
oh, okay.
Like, I'm not really like furious about it. It's just, it's more of a pet peeve, annoying thing. That, like, for example, like when someone is like putting on full display their false humility, I'm like, or like sometimes when like a pastor, this is years ago,
Yeah.
a particular pastor like did my family dirty,
Oh.
and then now I have a bad image of that
Oh.
person.
Oh, okay. Right.
Have I forgiven them yet? I don't know. I should. I
Yeah,
probably
you
did.
should have. How many years ago was this? I think it's time to let
Time
go,
to
dude.
open the woods. Yeah. So yeah.
But how do you know if they have false humility?
Because I don't know. It just doesn't seem genuine.
It's a radar. False.
It's like you know, like, oh, like, because I have this view that, like, you know, there's like, you know, we give all the glory and credit to God, but I feel like sometimes God does want us to have that credit and glory. And so when I try give it to that person, like, oh no, it's all God, like they refuse to take it. And I was like, dude, just be quiet and just accept it, kind of thing. Yeah.
I think for me, I find it really hard to potentially talk to socially awkward people. It's a definite challenge. I mean, like, God loves all people, and I remember having this conversation with a friend before. Like, genuinely, we were like, how do we handle socially awkward people at our church? We were from different churches, and then we were like saying, maybe sometimes they don't even know that they're socially awkward, so they need to be told. And we're like, I mean, just imagine if I'm telling someone like, hey, Dom, you're socially awkward. Like, it's I mean, how, you know? So I think that's something that
Such a gamble.
yeah, I think that's a bias that I do need to confront, is like, how do I, you know, deal with like people like this? And I think oftentimes I tend to stay away from them.
Was there a really awkward moment you can remember?
I didn't exactly tell them like, oh, they shouldn't be doing this. It was just I think the way I behaved, I noticed that the way I behaved wasn't very loving. I kind of like distance myself as opposed to approach the person to the point where this person was like, do you not like me? Like, why do you, and I was like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I became more apologetic than anything, even though like, so I put people's feelings too much, like focus on people's feelings, and then also trying to like also protect mine, and then distance. And then so I think the distance technically hurts people more than being honest, like, hey, actually the way you do this is kind of uncomfortable. So yep, important thing to note, we can't just believe in the words of God, we gotta put them into action. And so I would say that Abraham and Rahab's examples are great examples of faith. So, and these are two examples that Pastor Fromm brought up. And so how do their examples push us beyond believing to acting on our beliefs? Like, what can we learn from their stories about taking risks for the sake of our beliefs?
I think it's the usual, you talk the talk, you better walk the walk, like it's just that. But I feel like to expound more on that, right? I feel that, if you just have the perception of someone and that's it, like the equivalent of like talk the talk but not walk the walk. For example, Keith, right? If I know Keith plays keys, I know Keith is Asian, I know Keith, I know all these stuff. But if there's like no work, like what Pastor Franz said, like faith without work is dead, right? If there's no work or input, this is not a relationship. This is just like my perception of you, right? Like that's why, like, I guess you could say, like, if you can know so much about an internet celebrity or influencer, but if there's no like back and forth conversation, that's not a relationship. That's just, I don't know what that is. So I think like, walk the walk, which is like, gotta put in the effort, gotta put in the input. And I think when that's put in, then it's a relationship, I feel.
I think like the story of Rahab really stands out to me, because again, she has no idea who these people are, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put a red rope outside my window, and my building won't fall, right? I'm assuming Jericho is huge. I didn't do research, but I'm pretty sure it's huge. And just have one building and one string out is like, you won't fall. Well, okay, sure. That's
the first Mission Impossible.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first Mission Impossible. Well, the first Mission Impossible was Abraham leaving.
True.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, I think that really shows how she's like, okay, well, I trust that your God is going to take care of me, so I'm going to do it, even though it sounds ridiculous. And I think there are a lot of times where when we live out our faith, it does things may look foolish, or things may look unwise in the eyes of like the world. Like, why would you not do that? Why would you not, or why would you do that? That kind of thing, right? So I think it's just really trusting that, again, God has a bigger picture in mind. Like, I have to say, I don't necessarily think about examples of Abraham and Rahab every single day. But I think just the idea of like just thinking about Rahab, and just, she was like, here you go, one string. It's like, that's a lot of faith for someone that you barely know and barely met, and you just like, let's go. So I think sometimes you just have to extend that faith. And again, it's different because we have a relationship with the Lord. We have experienced His goodness, and so I think we know that it is worth it to put our faith in Him.
Exactly, like experiencing it, right? Like you can always, I know that person experienced God. And I have a perception that, or I have a belief that God's gonna bless me because I believe Him. And knowing about it is one thing, but like experiencing it is like another level.
So I think that's the first step to like go forth. I think there are many examples of faith, Abraham, Rahab, those of them, and I'm sure also in our modern day as well, we've got people around us that inspire us. And I think is basically putting into action what we believe. And I think even Pastor Fromm was sharing about like example of Operation Joseph, like really reaching out to the marginalized, and I think to this day it's still doing stuff through manna, right? And so I think yeah, something to bear in mind is, yeah, when we believe the words of God, we have to put in action. And one of the things is really, no, do not show favoritism. All right, well, that's that for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.